So again, just observing these two shapes, I think that, I don't know, I think that this is still, I think this still needs to get a little bit warmer. I don't know, color is a very tricky thing, but thankfully it's mostly subjective. And if you get color a little bit wrong, it's not the end of the day. If you get the value a little bit wrong, that's a little less forgiving, to be honest. And I'm just giving you the truth here. At least with, at least in my opinion. So again, this whole area is a little bit pinker. It should be a little pinker than I have. So let's just take this on its own. Neutralize it a little bit. Just this, I think this was a combination of cadmium red and alizarin permanent. Just gonna neutralize it a tad bit with that. Let's go ahead and just put a little transparent, there we go. So a very semi-transparent coat. So we're maintaining the value arrangement, but now we're applying a type of semi-transparent layer. I guess you can refer to this point, at this point you could refer to it as glazing. Because we're letting the value arrangement underneath show, but we're just tinting the colors a little warmer. Gotta be careful now, because there's going to be a value change here that I don't want to lose. Alright, so the next little zone of colors here, this is very close to, I don't know, it looks purple to me. So again, ultramarine blue and alizarin permanent, mixing right onto the darker region of the palette, ensuring that I don't have a straight purple, because again, purple in the flesh tone is very dangerous. So a little bit of burnt umber. Not saying never use purple in the flesh tones, but I tend to avoid it. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a stab at this color. So that's definitely warmer. So that's a little better. I did make it a little darker, and I perceived it to be a little darker there. Again, this is a very tricky area of color and value. All right, so let's make sure that the darks, so let's just take directly from the palette. Let's make sure that these darks are well established. Just like my my buddy and mentor, I like to refer to him as, Paul Wilson, told me to make sure to establish those darks and key everything off of the darks. So again, that's the darkest we can go, and we're going to relate everything to that dark. So again, this dark is equivalent almost to this dark that we talked about before. So let's, I don't know, I think that the hue is going to be cooler. So let's add some ultramarine blue. So the hue of the shapes surrounding this dark are going to be a little cooler. That's a little too dark, so let's just mix right onto that. So we're keying everything off of that darkest dark. Keyword key. So keying, I'm referring to the word keying as basing everything off of that one dark dark. So we might have to paint over top of that dark dark for a second there. And then we're going to come back with different brush. Try to get that dark back. So keying everything off the darks, there we go. That's a little better. Now I don't want to lose the shape of the cast shadow. I think I'm losing the shape of the cast shadow. A little bit of Neo-McGilp. Let's make this a little more greenish. I don't want to lose the shape of this dark now. The value is a little off. Ivory black. Remember, ivory black is just, to me, it's just a neutral blue. Don't want to lose that shape. So let's go ahead and get into these flesh tones. Darker middle tone region, almost exactly middle tone actually. And there's a little swoop here that I'm pretty sure I had in the transfer drawing. Yes, I did. So swoop is meaning like this. Straight line going this way, straight line going down. There we go. So keying everything off this dark, we're going to be moving on down towards this region. This is going to be like the side plane of the chin. So this is going to get darker, but it's still going to be lighter than these areas. This is dark, but it's lighter than this, and it's darker than this. And the color is basically warmer than this. But as we move on down, there's going to be quite a little more warmth there. So let's take from this little pink here, mix right into this area here. So these colors are actually going to get a little warmer as we approach the shadows. So I'm going to dilute the paint a little bit with Neo-McGilp medium. I'm going to switch back to my other brush now. So again, this is going to be a little darker and a little pinker. Let's use a little bit of the orange into this lighter region of the palette. Now we're getting a flesh tone, at least an advanced one. And if you're very indecisive and you find that you're constantly working back and forth and never really deciding on what a certain color or a certain value needs to be, then you're at a good position. This is where it pays to be indecisive sometimes, because you really get to test out certain color combinations and certain value arrangements. So I'm very cautious about my edges. So I don't want this edge here to get too sharp. So again, with an intermediate value, I'm going to try to soften this edge with a very light touch. This is precision stuff now, the handling of the brush. Normally I would have my hand supported on something, but since I don't have any paint here yet, I can just rest my hand on the side. And a little more orangey Let's get some of the orange and a tiny bit darker. Just like with the pencil, we're going to be kind of just creating a little hatch marks. Whoops. There we go. So we're kind of creating little hatch marks here. Now there's a very almost impossibly subtle form overlap. Light, dark, light, dark. But this area is darker, so it's very complicated now at this point. But luckily, we did the transfer drawing and an underpainting, so we really have a lot of stuff backing up our decisions here. So a little pinker. So by form overlap, I mean light here, dark here, and light here. But this light is lighter than this light. This dark is darker than this dark. So again, let's get into the middle tone region of the palette. And down here, it's going to get darker, like I said. At the same time, I'm really trying to soften that edge. Now I know I'm going too dark with that, so let's go ahead and adjust it from there. Now, this is where it helps to have a lot of experience with still life painting. I have a video or two, maybe just two, I don't know. I have some videos on still life on my YouTube channel, so you can feel free to check those out. But still life really helps you learn how to handle the paint. So a lot of paint handling, and so in terms of just trying to make this one shape completely dark and then painting the light onto that I pretty much learned from still life mostly. In a sense, everything is still life, but the portrait is a little different because of it necessitates an understanding of anatomical structure and planes. Not that still life doesn't incorporate planes, but anatomical structure is kind of a thing. And we talked about it throughout the transfer drawing and the underpainting. So again, let's go ahead and tweak this little shape. Now remember, this is lighter than this. But this little transitioning shape here is darker. I don't want to make everything too smooth either, so some of the brush marks I'm going to let show. So sometimes I'll make something a little more rough. I don't want to make everything too smooth now. So for instance, I'm going to scatter some of these colors. Just scattering it around. Don't want to make it too smooth because then she might look like a marble sculpture. So I gotta be careful with that. So just optically, this little shape of light that we see on this eye, this little bit of light that we see of the sclera on the right side, it should be the same width as this light here, but they're not. So I think that I'm going to have to add a little more of a shape here for the iris. So it's really tiny stuff. At this point, I'm going to have to use a little wooden dowel to support my hand. It's very, very tiny. It's an incredibly tiny shape. The painting is kind of glaring from my angle. So I have a brand new fan brush, so very lightly. Probably imperceptible to the camera, but from my angle it was glaring a little too much. So I think that's a little better. Now the next thing I'm going to do is with a clean, dry brush, I'm going to look at some areas with edges that should be softened, such as this area here. Now very, very cautiously, I don't want to over soften too many shapes right now. So probably this edge here might need to get a little softer, and this edge here, incredibly soft. Now we already mixed up the value earlier, sorry, the color that we wanted to place on top of the value. So now it's just a matter of edge. Making this edge super, super soft. So you know how I like to leave vignettes? Yeah, this is gonna be a vignette. So one thing I always say to myself, when in doubt, blur it out. So just gonna blur that out. I don't know what I'm gonna do with that shoulder. I'm not terribly good at making things up, everyone. So since I'm uploading these videos daily, I'll just go ahead and take your recommendations. Do you want me to paint the rest of the background that you see in the photo reference? Do you want me to leave it be? I think the forces at B are telling me to kind of just leave this as a study the way it is. I think the forces at B are kind of telling me to let it go, let it be. I'm pretty happy with the way that the face is turning out. But if you want to see me push this painting further, maybe add some flesh tone here, or the shirt color, the chair, the stuff in the background, go ahead and let me know in the comment section. If you want me to continue to push this painting further, I'd be happy to figure that out for you. And I'm going to go ahead and start filming something else now. By the time you see this video, it will probably be a couple days after I have filmed this segment. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and look at the comment section for the completion of this portrait. If you want me to push it further, I'll push it further. If you want me to leave it be, I'll go ahead and leave it be. I'll just decide that by counting the number of suggestions for leave it be or continue it. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.